This is August 3rd, 2016. We're in Skagway, Alaska. Just to show you some of the cruise ships. The first one here is the Norwegian Jewel. And the next one is the Norwegian Pearl over here. And right behind us is the Star Princess, big cruise ship. And this is, as you can see, the weather does not look so good. Our luck ended today. We had a nice streak of good weather, and it's drizzly right now. We're supposed to go on the White Pass Railway up the mountain to follow the route of the gold miners, and we'll have to see what the conditions are later. We're not going to leave till noon, so we have a while. Hopefully the weather clears, but that's Alaska. You never know what happened. Hope to have a good time today.
Up the White Pass.
We are on the White Pass Railway going from Skagway to British Columbia, Canada. This is the 1898 trail that fortune seekers traveled on by foot. I am now going to show you some scenery as we go north.
Coming out this time of the year. Looking forward to the left across the canyon from us. You might be able to see that blue roof building across the canyon. Now that blue roof building is the United States Customs building, built 12 miles from the border that we're going to cross the White Pass. We are coming up to milepost 14 on the rail maps, Glacier Station. We are going to be traveling through Glacier Station. It's another popular place to drop off or pick up hikers. They can go hiking about a mile and a half further up this valley to the beautiful Yukon Glacier, and then they'll hike back down and catch a southbound train back into Skagway. At this point, folks, we are about to cross over those bridges we saw from earlier. You're going to have some really nice drop-offs coming up on either side as we go over the wooden trestle. Looking forward to the left, you might be able to catch your engines as they cross over that bridge that spans the gorge. And when your car is on top of the wooden trestle, you'll have a good 150-foot drop-off on either side. A pretty waterfall coming down the gorge off to the right, and about 1,000 feet. But right to the canyon floor on the left. We will be entering into the first tunnel of the day. This one is 250 feet long, and it does get very dark.
Are fights on Broadway? I think so. Tiny shop? Yes. Has jewelry in it? It's the best steak sandwich. Yes, you also get $20 for all three.
We're at the end of the railway trip from Skagway up into British Columbia, and the view here at the end is absolutely beautiful. I want to share this with you. We're at the top of a mountain. It's kind of chilly, starting to rain a bit, but it's just a beautiful sight.
We will now depart by bus for the trip back to Skagway.
But for the gold rush, if you wanted to come up here and try and strike it rich, like a lot of people did, where you would start off in, you would start off in Skagway. You would then climb about 20 miles until you reach the summit. From there, you'd go about 30 miles until you reach Canadian Customs. From there, you would then continue on another 40 miles until you hit a little town called Carcross. Then once you hit Carcross, you'd spend about a month building a boat. You would build that boat, and then you would finally ride that boat for 500 miles until you reach Dawson City, where the gold was actually being found. So you had a very short and easy journey ahead of you, as you can all imagine doing that. This is Tormented Valley, by the way, if anybody is wondering where we currently are. This is Tormented Valley. This is where a lot of those strong ones were basically cut out because they either couldn't make it across this terrain, or simply just because they gave up and they realized that it wasn't worth it. So the very first man to ever find gold up in Dawson City, his name was Skookum Jim. Now Skookum Jim, the first piece of gold that he found was the size of his thumb. He pulled it out of a riverbed, and from there he started spreading word that you can find gold up in the Yukon. Once he started spreading that word, there was a man named William Moore. William Moore was the very first steamboat captain that ever settled down in Skagway. Once he had settled down in Skagway, he had then heard the word that there was gold up in the Yukon, and he was wondering if you could actually make it from Skagway up into Dawson City. So he was once again the first one to pave the way. He came up through on the Klondike Trail, the very one you guys will be traveling to this day. And then he started spreading word that you can actually make it up through Alaska's Inside Passage of Skagway. And that helped out a lot of people because instead of having to go over all of the rocky terrain through the United States up into Canada and all the way over into Dawson City, you can simply cut about half of that down by coming up into Skagway. So, some of the very earliest gold seekers, they came in and they had started their trek up this journey. Now, when you had to come in as a gold rusher, you had to have a minimum of 3,000 pounds when you first started. You had to have a minimum of 2,000 pounds by the time you hit Canadian Customs, otherwise they would not let you through. And that's so that you didn't place a burden on somebody else by having to take some of their food or their supplies or their provisions. If you did not have that 2,000 pounds of food and supplies by the time you hit Canadian Customs, you had three choices. The first one was to go back down into Skagway, grab more food and supplies, and then bring it back up here and continue on your journey. The second one was the fact that you could simply try and make a run for it with about not even a third of your weight with you, and you tried to make a run for it while Canadian Customs started to shoot at you. That is how serious they were about that weight limit, is they would literally rather have you dead than have you scavenging and stealing from other people. Your third option is you could basically quit and leave it there and go back home. So those were the options if you did not have that 2,000 pound minimum by the time you hit Canadian Customs. Now, how you would carry a lot of this weight, you would carry these backpacks. You'd put about 65 pounds in each backpack. You would then carry one of those backpacks up 5 miles. You'd set that backpack down, you'd go back down, grab your next backpack, and move it up into the next pile as well. So you would continually move all the way up here in these 5 mile increments the entire way. So by the time you reach the summit alone, which is the very first 20-mile stretch, you could have climbed from the very top of that summit almost 60 to 70 times simply trying to get your supplies and your goods up that mountain. And I do apologize, it will be loud for just a second. I do have to turn on my defrost, and that's the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. So as you were coming up through and you were carrying all of those supplies and all of those provisions, you would then continue on through Tormented Valley. Now, I mentioned some of the earliest gold seekers. Those earliest gold seekers decided to quit, and they went back down in. It was one of the first 1,000 that came in. and they settled down in a little tiny settlement called Liarsville. Once they settled down in Liarsville, they started selling their food and their supplies to other people that were coming up in the gold rush. And then eventually you started having news journalists and news reporters who came in, and instead of those news journalists and news reporters having to carry their own 2,000 pounds going up into Dawson City themselves, they saw that nice little settlement down there. Now when they saw that settlement, that's where they started getting their story. They started asking them how easy it was, how much gold could be found, and a lot of different types of information and things like that. And so once they started doing this, they did not want to be made fun of for quitting and not actually making it up into Dawson City. So they started telling stories and lies to these news journalists and these news reporters about how easy it was, how you just have a nice leisurely hike to the top. Once you get to the top, there's going to be a cruise ship there that has a 7-day all-you-can-eat buffet waiting for you. You ride that cruise ship all the way up into Dawson City, you reach into the nearest riverbed, pull out a golden nugget the size of a potato, and then you come back home and you're rich, and it's that easy. And I'll take a break from that real quick. If everybody does want to look off to the left-hand side, we will see some important buildings. These are what we call the international outhouses. And the reason why we call them the international outhouses is for two reasons. A, they're in between the United States and Canada. And B, when you've really got to go, you're Russian. When you're in there, you're European. And then by the time you're done, you're Finnish. Told you, bad jokes. Coming through this area, though, if you can imagine trying to be a miner on the gold rush, you had to come through this terrain, you had to come through in this weather, and so there was a lot of things that you had to do in order to try and make it through. Now, I was mentioning a little bit about those who came on the earliest settlers and when those news reporters came. And so when they had first started, there was only about 1,000, as I mentioned, that came. After they started telling those lies and the news reporters started sending that out to the central world and the central United States, we had an influx of over 100,000 people who came in to try and strike it rich. By the way, we are at the summit right now. This is the highest we will reach. It is 3,292 feet above sea level. And every tour I do, I always have somebody ask me where their boat was on sea level. And your boat literally is on sea level. That would be the sea, and the boat's on it. So you have 0 there, and you came up to about 3,292 feet. And so that's why we are in the clouds quite a bit up here. And this is usually what it looks like for most of our tours up here. But as we are coming down through here, I mentioned those 100,000 people came up to the summit. So from that point alone, it take about 6 months to go through there, 2 months to go through Tormented Valley, another 2 months to get to Carcross, and about 3 months to be able to build your boat and actually travel up into Dawson City. So all in all, it would take you almost an entire year, and if not more than a year, to actually reach it to Dawson City alone.
We're now leaving the Alaskan town of Skagway. We had a very nice time here. Beautiful location at the end of this bay. Unfortunately, we didn't have too much time to explore the town because we went on the White Pass Railway, which took up a lot of our time. We had a limited amount of time, but it certainly looked like an interesting town. Need more time to see it properly. There's maybe 600 residents during the year. Most of the people, the big population expands with the tour ships coming in the summer. Right now there are 3. We're leaving. Sometimes I heard they have as many as 5 cruise ships with 10,000 people total, and that's where the town makes the money. Things are very expensive here because everything has to be shipped in, and half a gallon of milk is $8, for example, so the cost of living is very high here. And you have to make the money during the tourist season. Leaving Skagway, it's just been a beautiful thing to see. That's Skagway down there. You can see a ship, but I'm on the aft deck, and it is just beautiful to see the scenery as you leave. I'm trying to share this with you. Very beautiful. And in some cases you see the waterfalls coming down the mountain. This is the starboard side, or the right side of the ship. The left side of the ship, you can see the view here. It's absolutely beautiful. I wanted to share this with you. And when the mist is at the side of the mountain, of course, makes it look very nice. Continuing to leave the Skagway area, at the top of this mountain there's quite a bit of snow. I just wanted to show you that. This is August 3rd and they got snow up there. Still leaving the area here. Spectacular view. Still leaving the Skagway area. Been a treat. On our starboard side, we have snow-covered mountains. Here it is, August 3rd, and this looks like plenty of snow up there. We're still leaving the Skagway area. Taking a closer look at that snow and ice up there, and I would think that's a glacier. I'm certainly no expert, but I think that would qualify as a glacier. tomorrow we're going to see the Hubbard Glacier early in the morning. The captain just spoke to us. We should get up early by 6:30, and we're not landing at all tomorrow. It's a cruising day, but big photo op for the Hubbard Glacier.